Swamp plan. Remember, this Mono Black is the deck that Max took down the Invitational in Las Vegas last December with. I don't believe he dropped a game. Yeah, Todd also a former Invitational winner, so we have a pair of Invitational winners here. And we see here, all right, well, bringing you into game 3, Todd is on the Pack Rat, has a pair of Pack Rats in play, but he's under a little bit of pressure from a Desecration Demon and an Underworld Connections on Max's side of the board.
So from this spot, Max has the opportunity to play Bile Blight. That can be very good for him here. He has the opportunity to simply damage race with Grey Merchant or try to race by drawing removal spells.
Right, and actually in Max's hand, you see, you now get to see it from Thoughtseize, Grey Merchant, Whip of Erebos, and a Swamp. Nothing that Todd really wants to see, so he kind of has to choose here. He can take Grey Merchant, or if he gives Max the Whip, then he's basically committing to sacking to Desecration Demon.
And the problem is also that the Whip, you know, taking the Grey Merchant, puts it into the graveyard, then the Whip is 2 more pieces of Devotion and it comes back. So Todd has to win a short, if he's playing like this, he has to win a very short game. He cannot go long.
And he's gonna go ahead and go for that. He takes the Grey Merchant, puts it into the yard, and see where he goes from here. He has no attacks yet. A lot of times in Mono Black Mirrors, you get to this point where one player gets a card advantage engine going, and that forces the other player to become the aggro deck.
Yeah, and Whip is so bad for Todd to see that in Max's hand there. Because, you know, Max has a variety of Mutavaults in play, too, on top of the Desecration Demon.
Right.
And if Todd can only win a short game, then even taking a couple random hits and Max gaining some life is enough to upend what Todd's trying to do.
What I think, it seems like what I imagine Todd is going to try to do then is to just actually make an army of Pack Rats. Mm-hmm. One thing is that if Max is committed to playing Whip and whipping back Grey Merchant, that's a lot of time and mana that Max has to use to do that. And each time Max does one of those first turn, Todd will get another Pack Rat.
Well, Max can also just say, play Whip right now, declare attackers. It's a really risky line in the event that Todd has a removal spell left over in his hand as his last card, but it does force Todd to do something right now because it's not like he can allow Max to gain 6 in this spot. He doesn't have to commit all of his mana this turn. He can leave some Mutavaults back on T, draw another card with Underworld Connections, maybe try to force the game to a point where the Grey Merchant in the graveyard is just lethal on its own.
Yeah. So for his turn, Max drew a Thoughtseize. I think contemplating whether or not he wants to cast that. 2 life points seems like a pretty hefty price right now, especially when your opponent's hand is all Pack Rats anyway.
I really like casting Whip here and just putting Todd to the test.
Yeah. He's going to play the Swamp from his hand. We'll see whether or not he decides to Thoughtseize. It does not, it looks like he decides not to. So he makes Whip of Erebos. And you're right. Todd definitely cannot let that happen. So he leaves up Mutavault and a Temple. Can't let this life gain happen. And as you said, goes to attacks. Todd's going to make another Pack Rat and sack it to the Demon. But now Todd out of cards. And Max is going to hit him with a Mutavault. Remember, that is a life-linking Mutavault, so Todd will drop to 11 while Max goes up to 14.
And Todd can't really chump block with a rat that, or trade with a rat that turn. Of course, he has to win a short game, so. And Max can't block on the way back because Todd can make his rats much larger than 2/2. So a free 2 points of damage there for Max.
Yeah, Todd can swing for A tier. That's not going to be enough, though. And Max will have a lethal, well, not a lethal swing back, but he'll gain a lot of life on the next turn if Todd goes that way.
Yeah.
He drew Underworld Connections for the turn. It seems like it's too late to go on that plan.
I don't think you can spend a turn doing that. I think Todd has to just make rats.
Yeah, he drew another Pack Rat.
And, you know, I think that if I was in Todd's position, I would have taken away the Whip. I know the Grey Merchant in hand is really bad for Todd, but, you know, that Whip in play is causing Todd all sorts of problems right now. And the Grey Merchant is still present, of course, because the Thoughtseize puts it in the graveyard.
The Whip forces Todd to sack to the Demon every turn, which means Todd doesn't get to draw any more cards.
Yeah.
So it seems like he's stuck on a losing board that he can't draw out of because he doesn't get draw steps. Max is going to do exactly as you mentioned, Whip back the Grey Merchant. This one drains for 8. So Todd goes down to 7, Max up to 20, down to 3, Max up to 21, and from here, this should be game for Max.
Yeah. Well, even if he's not able to, even if Todd like draws a bunch of removal spells, it's hard to imagine him getting any sort of forward momentum. And Max is drawing 2 cards a turn, where a lot of his draw sets are lethal.
All right. Todd goes ahead and sacks a rat, sacks the Mutavault to the demon. A swing by Gray Merchant. Todd makes another rat, and he's going to block the desecration, block the Gray Merchant, but Max gains 2. Gray Merchant is exiled. And another land. He's going to go ahead and scry. It looks like he's doing this before he draws his card off Underworld Connections. He'll draw the card, and I don't think, like I said, Todd's locked out of using any of his draws right now.
Yeah.
With Max at 22, Todd can't force through enough damage. He could swing for at most 12 here.
And the Mutavaults are threatening on the way back too. It's not even just about the demon in play.
Right, yeah, those he's gonna need to have blockers. Well, he can let 1 Mutavault through, so he's gonna need, so he has a chance. He's gonna make a pack rat here. And it looks like swing for 12, or at least 8. Gonna opt for 8. So Max goes down to 14. It looks like Todd's plan is gonna be to sack a tapped rat to the demon and leave back blockers for both Mutavaults.
Sure.
And
that looks like a lethal Rakdos return here.
That is a Rakdos' return. And I think he will just cast it. And that'll do it. Max Brown in 3 games defeats Todd Anderson. He moves on to 2-0 in the battle of former Invitational winners.
And Todd, formerly a player with 2 buys at various points, only has 1. I don't believe he's in